Welcome to Everything Explained. Today we're tackling a question you've probably heard in classrooms, airports, and news stories: is Macau part of China? The short answer is yes, but the long answer is a bit more interesting. It blends history, law, and everyday life in a place that feels very different from most other Chinese cities. First, what does it mean to be part of China? Think of a country as a big umbrella. Under that umbrella there are many different rooms with their own furniture. For Macau, that room is protected by China but still has its own setup for most things people experience every day. The People's Republic of China, PRC, is the sovereign state, handling things like national defense and foreign affairs. Macau, however, is a special administrative region, or SAR, which means it runs most of its own affairs with a high degree of autonomy. A quick look back helps the picture fit together. Macau was a Portuguese colony for centuries. In 1999, sovereignty over Macau was handed over to China under the Sino-Portuguese Joint Declaration. China's constitution continues to apply, but Macau was allowed to keep its own legal framework and economic system for at least 50 years, under what's called the Basic Law of Macau. That's the treaty-like document that acts like a local constitution for the SAR. So how does this play out in daily life? On the ground, Macau runs its own courts, its own police, its own immigration rules, and its own overall administration. It has its own legal system, based on civil law traditions that are different from the civil law in mainland China. It also has a distinct economy. Macau's economy has been powered for decades by tourism and gambling, with many casinos that draw visitors from across Asia and beyond. The government plans and regulates these industries just as a separate jurisdiction would. But Macau isn't completely separate from China. The central government in Beijing keeps control of national matters such as defense and foreign policy. It also has the right to supervise Macau's government to ensure it remains part of the PRC and follows the Basic Law. In practice, that means Macau can run its own day-to-day affairs, while Beijing handles the big-picture questions that affect the whole country. Let's talk about money and everyday life. The official currency of Macau is the Macanese pitaka, the mop. In practice, you'll also see Hong Kong dollars widely accepted, especially in big tourist zones and at casinos. The region uses its own currency system, but it's still deeply connected to China's broader economy and to regional financial circles in East Asia. The Chinese yuan is also increasingly present in business and financial dealings, but for most visitors the pitaka and the Hong Kong dollar are the easier currencies to use. What about people and identity? Residents of Macau hold Macau Special Administrative Region citizenship and use the Macau SAR passport for international travel. This is distinct from citizenship in the People's Republic of China, and it reflects the unique status of the SAR under the Basic Law. In everyday life, most people in Macau identify with a mix of local Macanese culture, Portuguese influence, and Chinese traditions, a blend you can feel in food, language, and festivals. A helpful analogy might make this easier to grasp. Imagine a large family with two siblings who share one house. They eat at the same family table, sleep under the same roof, and follow the same big family rules. But each sibling runs their own kitchen, plans their own household budget, and buys their own groceries. They cooperate on big family decisions, and each keeps some traditions that are special to them. Macau is like one of those siblings, part of the same family as China, yet with a distinct kitchen, budget, and customs. People often compare Macau to Hong Kong because both are special administrative regions with a one country, two systems flavor. In practice, both enjoy legal and economic autonomy, but the specifics, how laws are written, how elections happen, and how everyday life feels, can look quite different from place to place. Macau's governance tends to operate with a strong emphasis on stability and economic growth through its service and tourism sectors, while Hong Kong has its own set of institutions and political dynamics shaped by its own history. This arrangement is sometimes described as a compromise that tries to honor local needs while keeping a unified national frame. It's not a perfect system, and it can evolve as new leaders and new global circumstances come into play. But at its core, the status of Macau as part of China remains clear. It is a special administrative region under PRC sovereignty, with its own legal and economic systems for day-to-day life, and Beijing handling the big nationwide matters. If you're ever curious about how a city with Portuguese roots fits into modern China, a visit to Macau can help. You'll notice the old streets and tiled roofs where Portuguese influence lingers, alongside modern casinos, fitness centers, and a skyline that screams east meets west. That contrast isn't just aesthetic, it's a reminder of the SAR's mission to maintain a distinct local system while belonging to a bigger country. So, is Macau part of China? Yes. It's part of China in sovereignty, but it operates with a high degree of autonomy in law, government, and daily life. It's a place where you can feel both the weight of a vast nation and the charm of a small, independent city. Thank you for listening. If you're planning a trip or just curious about how big political ideas play out in real places, Macau is a perfect example of a small city with a big story.